name is Giselle Timmerman, and I'm here at the 18th European Association of Work and Organizational Psychology Conference. I'm joined by Professor Arnold Bakker from Erasmus University Rotterdam, a professor in Work and Organizational Psychology and past EWALT president.
That's correct.
And I'm also joined by Jessica Landai-Shortal, our division secretary and also a Ph.D. student studying job crafting. I'm here today to introduce the division's newest resource, which is an offering on pertinent topics in our field. We're calling these digests, and we're thinking of them as coffee talks, simple digests on pertinent topics that we can apply to our working lives. So here today, Jessica and Arnold will kick off the topic of job crafting. Take it away.
Thanks, Giselle. So you might be familiar with job crafting, as Gruzinewski and Dutton have put it, so crafting tasks, relationships, and cognitions. And there's a video on in the library. However, Arnold Bakker also worked on job crafting with a different approach. How about you tell us a little bit about how your approach works?
Yeah, well, the approach is based in the Gruzinewski and Dutton approach, so we were really stimulated by it, but we thought that the approach was quite general. So if you look at it very specifically, then it says that there is 3 types: task crafting, relationship crafting, cognitive crafting, which is by itself not telling too much about what it is in the tasks or what it is in the relationships that you are crafting. And then cognitive crafting is not about changing the environment at all, actually. So we thought that it would be most interesting to follow a behavioral approach instead of a cognitive approach. And therefore we thought we should focus on concrete behaviors. And we embedded our job crafting approach in the job demands resources theory, which states that every organization has various job characteristics, but still you can think of them as representing 2 categories, namely job demands, the things that ask energy from you, and job resources, the things that motivate you. So when it comes then to job crafting, it is quite logical to assume that what you can change proactively in your work environment is the job demands and the job resources, and that is what we propose.
Right, so by increasing job crafting, you can either increase your resources, increase your demands, I think you can also reduce the demands that are hindering, so increase the ones that are stimulating for you, but reduce the ones that are harder and take a toll on you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so indeed that's the differentiation in the types of demands. So we say you can use, you can proactively take the initiative to take away the real stressors, the hindrance things, so the things that stand in the way towards your goals, hindrance demands, and to search for challenges, the things that interest you. And on the other hand, you can also look out for resources by, for example, asking for support, asking for feedback, looking for opportunities to develop yourself. And these new resources you can use to deal with your challenges, let's say.
That's super interesting. And job crafting has been found to be linked to work engagement.
Very much.
It's been seen as an important outcome, but it's also been reviewed and studied as an antecedent. So how would you talk about the process of job crafting? Why do people start doing it, and what's the impact on the worker? That's
a good question. I remember we have a new paper coming out that's in 2017 in JOHP, in the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology, and in that journal we explain the latest version of the theory, saying that job crafting is an outcome and a predictor of work engagement. How does it work? So how it works is, if you would start with job crafting, then job crafting would normally optimize your work environment, and if you are in an optimal work environment, you would be more engaged.
Absolutely.
Right? So there, job crafting is the predictor of engagement. What we found, and what is originally based in conservation of resources theory, is that when people are engaged and very motivated and happy with what they are doing, they want to conserve that. And they are then proactively trying to optimize the work environment in order to stay engaged. So they look for resources, they look for the right demands, so that they can continue to be vigorous, dedicated, and absorbed in their work.
So it's like a positive spiral where when you feel engaged, you tend to make your environment even more engaging and stimulating for you, and that creates more engagement. So it's a...
Yeah, so that's one of the propositions. And also the implication for practice is that if you want to be engaged, you better start working on it right now and continue working on it. You cannot sit back and relax and say, well, I'm happy, everything's good. Well, things will change. You will get older, the situation will change, the organization may demand other things from you. So you will need to change along with that, and you can do that through job crafting.
Absolutely, and job crafting is essentially a very self-initiated concept where you look at your job and you try to figure opportunities to craft it. Mm-hmm. Is there any way that team leaders can facilitate that process or help their employees job craft?
There's very interesting research that is just coming out by a Ph.D. student of Evangelia de Maruti, a professor in Eindhoven, also in the Netherlands. His name is Haiyang Wang. He's from China. And Haiyang Wang has done a complete dissertation on this question, what can leaders do? I have been involved in a theoretical paper where he has been looking at that. And what he proposes is that leaders can empower followers, employees, to craft their jobs. So by giving them the autonomy, by giving them the inspiration and the trust that they can do this, and maybe also by regulating the working conditions. So if you're really too busy to change anything in your job, you won't get to it, and then you're in a vicious negative cycle. So what he found in a series of studies is that leaders can do something about it by empowering followers.
Okay, so empowering them, giving them autonomy, getting good conditions, and there is some research also on interventions that have proven successful in the workplace, right?
Yeah. So there's research by Jessica van Wingerden, and she found that, but also by I remember now by Mekki van der Heuvel and Eva de Maruti and others, and there is more research by Pariske Vaspetru, and these studies show that if you design an intervention, an experimental intervention where you have also a control group, you follow people over time, what happens is that people are in a workshop of a full day or 1.5 days or half a day, and the groups that have been studied are hospital nurses, surgeons, police officers, teachers, and several other groups that I'm not aware of. And what you see is that what people learn in the workshop is what is job crafting, how can I modify and optimize my work environment. And then they make a personal crafting plan. And I think that's quite similar to the Resniewski and Dutton approach, actually. I think that was also inspiring these interventions. But here people learn to change their demands and resources, and they set goals for what kind of demands and resources they are going to change in the next weeks. And then we follow them for, let's say, 5 or 8 weeks. And every week we contact them again and say, okay, this was your goal. Have you worked on it? For next week, this is your goal. So then they look for specific challenges. So they set specific goals. They look for specific resources. And then they implement, in a sense, what they've learned in the training. And what we see is, taking everything together, and I think there are about 8 interventions now that are about to be published or that are in press or under review that I'm aware of. Most of the studies show that job crafting has quite positive effects on self-efficacy. So people are more self-efficacious. They think they are able to work well. Work engagement is an outcome, a positive outcome, positive affect, flourishing, performance, adaptive performance as observed in objective measures. So we did one study with nurses where we looked at whether they filled out the status of the patients on a daily basis, and the intervention group did that better. So the job crafting group did it more than the control group over time. So various outcomes that have been found to be influenced by what people have learned in a job crafting intervention.
So
great. It's quite hopeful.
Great research, and it's a great concept because there's a lot of research on it, but there's also lots of applications going on.
Yes.
And so what would you say are the next big questions in research and job crafting? What are the next challenges, the things we want to figure out?
Well, there are some basic questions that have not been addressed very well yet. So one of the issues could be that is it really job crafting and the changing of the environment, or is it just being aware of the fact that you can do something?
Mm-hmm.
Or working on your environment, not really changing it, but you're in charge, let's say. And is it that makes you enthusiastic and in control and performing better? Or is it really changing the environment?
So comparing, for example, studies where we do an job crafting intervention with one where it's simply empowering leadership or just giving the worker more autonomy is what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and and we also need to know whether we can do the intervention by training the leaders and telling them about the importance of job crafting and how they can empower their followers. So that could have an oil stain effect, let's say. So that would be very helpful. What else? So there's only one study that followed people that had followed a job crafting intervention over a longer period of time, namely 1 year later, a follow-up study by Jessica van Dingerden again. And we found there longitudinal effects, but that's only one study. So we need more evidence that this can be sustained, that the effects can be sustained. Also, one of the propositions of the American scholars, Burke, Wisniewski, and Dutton, was that in a 2010 paper that job crafting would lead people to use their strengths. And I would find that really interesting to see the link between job crafting and strengths. I have some evidence, not written down yet, but I've analyzed some data that I recently got in, showing that there is a positive link between the two concepts. So more job crafting, more strength use, which then makes you more engaged and make you perform better in the eyes of your colleagues. What else? So, well, I think there are quite a few things already.
Quite inspiring, something to follow up. So thank you so much for your time and answering the questions.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure to speak to you. And Arnold is actually one of our advisors on the division, so we might eventually hear back from him. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.